Hi, very good morning. I'm Dr. Janak Patel, MD physician. Today we'll be discussing on very interesting topic which will be very useful to you in your everyday practice. That is how you approach to a person in whom you suspect a thyroid disorders. So we say that thyroid normal function disorders in very short. We'll be talking of hypothyroidism, hyperthyroidism, nodule in very short. So you know very well there is a big spectrum of thyroid disorders. It can be severe thyroid disorders like we call manifest or we call clinical hypo or hyper, and in that you can have a mild variety, you can have a severe variety, and where the person is asymptomatic we call subclinical. So the presentation of thyroid disorder can be subclinical, mild, or we call overt, or we call clinical, or it can be a very severe variety like complications like myxedema, coma, or thyrotoxic crisis. So it can be hypo, having subclinical, mild, or severe, or it can be hyper. And sometimes you've got a thyroid enlargement, but it is euthyroid, normal functioning thyroid. So you can have a goiter which can be hypofunctioning, hyperfunctioning, or euthyroid. A classical example of a euthyroid goiter is a puberty goiter. Say maybe a mild iodine deficiency goiter, etc. Goiter can be smooth enlargement and that can be hyperfunctioning. Classical example is Graves' disease, or it can be a nodular goiter, or it can be cystic. When it is nodular, it can be solitary nodule, maybe hyperfunctioning, or maybe hypofunctioning. When it is hyperfunctioning solitary nodule, we call that as a Goiter's disease. And when it is a multinodular, solitary nodule or multinodular. When it is multinodular and hyperfunctioning, we call multinodular toxic goiter. Classical example, Plummer disease. That solitary nodule can be malignant, can be non-malignant. Also, thyroid goiter can be malignant, can be non-malignant. Non-malignant we call benign. Depending upon the radioactive iodine uptake, may be normal, maybe low uptake, maybe high uptake. High uptake are usually hyperfunctioning or we call functioning goiters. Low uptake are usually because of destruction of the thyroid tissue like inflammatory infections, autoimmune disorders, subclinical, etc. Those groups. You can have inflammatory disorders, maybe an acute infections like bacterial, viral. It can be subacute like viral. Classical example, subacute Dequarian variety, or can be a chronic, particularly in case of Hashimoto's, we call autoimmune. And in autoimmune, you have got one Hashimoto's, second is Riddle's, and one more which is autoimmune, we call as a Graves' disease, which is basically an autoimmune. As far as the site is concerned, primary thyroid disorder we call primary. If it is pituitary or because of other than thyroid gland, we call secondary. There is a tertiary word utilized very commonly for hypothalamic disorder producing thyroid disorders, which can be hypo, can be hyper. This primary, secondary, or tertiary can be congenital, can be acquired. The effect of thyroid disorders can be temporary, can be permanent. Depending upon the anatomical site localization, you can say normal, you can have a thyroglossal cyst, you can have a lingual thyroid, intralingual thyroid, ectopic thyroid very frequently in a retrosternal region. Or you can have a paraneoplastic syndrome where it is secreting TSH, or we call TSH secreting tumors, TSHomas, which can be very commonly bronchogenic carcinoma or can be ovarian or testicular teratomas and occasionally GI tract tumors also. So we have told you that depending upon the duration of the symptom signs, transient or can be permanent. There is one another condition where your T3, T4 and TSH can be abnormal, that is U6 syndrome, where TSH remains normal and you can have a slight decrease in T3 level and you will have an increase in reverse T3 and T4 may be normal. Sick euthyroid, second name for the same condition, sick euthyroid syndrome, or it is also called as acute illness thyroid disorders. There is one another variety we call as iatrogenic or factitious, which is because of drugs, surgery, or we call as a radiotherapy, or can be also because of iodine excess intake, or can be iodine for treatment itself, or also because of hormone replacement therapy. Maybe because of antithyroid drugs, hormone replacement therapy, or it can be because of tissue resistance, peripheral tissue resistance, where thyroid hormone is produced but it is not effective. It can produce hypothyroidism. Etiology wise, one very simple way, congenital acquired, primary, secondary. Duration wise, permanent, transient, and severity wise, mild or subclinical, overt or clinical. Or also you can call that severe variety, we call it the myxedema coma or thyrotoxic crisis. There is also tertiary word which is being utilized. Secondary and tertiary put together is called central groups. Overt, sometime also you use the word frank diabetes or a frank hypothyroidism or frank thyrotoxicosis. Severe variety you call myxedema coma or thyroid storm or thyrotoxic crisis. There are some autoimmune disorder we call Hashimoto's, etc. This is already I have shown you this slide in a previous what we call as introduction of thyroid gland. That is, it can be euthyroid, hyper or hypo. Hyper or hypo. Diffuse goiter can be there. It can be solitary nodule or multinodular, solitary or multinodular, and this can be by and large multinodular, solitary nodule are hyperfunctioning rather than hypofunctioning. But still, multinodular can be still hypofunctioning or can be euthyroid also. Diffuse multinodular, diffuse goiter, if it is hyperfunctioning, it is usually Graves' disease. You can have a simple goiter which can be euthyroid. Hyperthyroid are usually the word utilized is toxic. We call as a diffuse toxic goiter, multinodular toxic goiter, toxic multinodular goiter, or toxic solitary nodule, or toxic solitary adenoma. So any one of these terminology is utilized. So toxic solitary nodule or toxic solitary adenoma, toxic multinodular goiter. Non-toxic multinodular means there is no hyperthyroidism. It may be euthyroid or maybe sometime, occasionally hypo. Non-toxic diffuse goiter, and you can have a toxic diffuse goiter. Usually hypothyroid is called non-toxic. Goiter can be hypo, hyper or neoplastic. In neoplastic it can be neoplastic or benign. Hypothyroid can be congenital or acquired. In congenital it may be because of abnormal hormonogenesis or because of autoimmune or because of drug induced. While acquired group is very frequently two most common groups, iodine deficiency and autoimmune. And this is very common in Himalayan territories, particularly Himachal Pradesh, very, very common. Severe iodine deficiency with a goiter. And autoimmune, we have got some of the common autoimmune, Hashimoto's, Riddle's, Graves is also autoimmune, and there are other groups also which can be hyper. Graves is hyper, other autoimmune can be hyper. And in autoimmune hyper, you can have even Hashimoto's. Occasionally, you can have a goiter which can be totally euthyroid. Hashimoto's, by and large, it is hypo. In some of the stage, it can be hyper. Then it is called Hashimotoxicosis. Hashimotoxicosis. Riddles is usually hypo. Graves' disease is usually hyper, and it is autoimmune variety. You can have a goiter secondary due to inflammation, which can be acute, subacute, or chronic. One of the example of chronic is Hashimoto's and Riddle's, while subacute is Dequarian, and acute is usually bacterial or viral infections. Neoplastic can be benign or malignant. Depending upon the radioactive iodine uptake, you can call as a low uptake goiters and high uptake goiters, or we call cold nodules and hot nodules. And between the two, we call as a warm nodule. Whenever there is an inflammation of thyroid gland, we call thyroiditis, which can be painful. And painful you can divide into infectious and post-viral. In infection, it can be acute or it can be chronic. Usually acute are because of bacterial infection like staphylococcus, streptococcus, pneumococcus, etc. While chronic is very commonly in an immunocompromised host, which is very commonly because of tuberculosis or pneumocystic carni, or very rare in fungal infection where the person is severely immunocompromised. So this is acute and chronic variety. While post-viral usually leads to a condition we call as a Dequarian variety, and this particular will be very frequently hypothyroidism, while a thyroiditis which is because of autoimmune disease, which is usually painless, and classical example are two, that is we call Hashimoto's and Riddle's. In Hashimoto's, you can have initially little toxicosis, later on it goes into a destructive part where you get hypothyroidism. Riddle's is basically because of extensive fibrosis, so it is a hard enlargement of a thyroid gland, and it is usually hypothyroid. In a postpartum period, again it is an autoimmune variety where by and large it results into hypothyroidism rather than hyperthyroidism, and some of the time you get an enlargement of the thyroid gland secondary to drugs or because of radiation also, and that can also produce inflammation of thyroid gland, we call thyroiditis, radiation induced thyroiditis, drug induced thyroiditis, etc. But the most common are these three: Hashimoto's, Riddle's, and postpartum. There are many other names utilized as far as thyroiditis is concerned. After understanding all these things, these are all the different terms or different types of disorders you can face in thyroid disorders. Can be hyper or hypo depending upon the function wise and depending upon the anatomical etiology, etc. These are all the terms which are being utilized. We have already done all those things. So go through all those again and again. You will remember all those very nicely. I'll try to make it as simple as possible as we proceed by. Now, whenever you suspect a person to have a thyroid disorders, main is a history, physical examination, and then you go for systemic like cardiovascular, CNS, respiratory, elementary. Any suspected case, good history and physical with systemic examination gives you almost an answer, clinical diagnosis. After getting a clinical diagnosis, you can do a thyroid function test we call TSH, free T4, T3, and T34, total T3, T4. And try to make out whether it is hypo or hyper. To differentiate between different conditions, particularly Graves' disease, Hashimoto's, other autoimmune disorders, you go for antibody studies like TPO antibody is positive in Graves as well as Hashimoto's, but strongly positive in Hashimoto's. H receptor antibody, short form we call as a TRAB. So TSH receptor stimulating antibody is strongly positive in a Graves' disease, and blocking antibodies or inhibitory antibodies is positive in case of Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Thyroglobulin antibody may be present in case of both, but it is little more in case of Graves' disease. TPO antibody may be also positive in some other condition also. Whenever you want to differentiate between primary, secondary and tertiary, we do for tertiary TRH stimulation test, and for secondary pituitary induced we do TSH stimulation test. Very rarely inhibition test is being done, that is T3 inhibition test, very rarely being done. Most commonly for hypothalamic induced disorders, TRH stimulation, and for pituitary induced TSH stimulation tests are being done. For thyroid nodule, ultrasound, radioactive iodine uptake, technetium scan, thyroid, that is technetium thyroid scan, followed by FNAC biopsy, or you can go for a routine biopsy, open biopsy. So these are mainly for nodules to differentiate malignant from non-malignant conditions, benign conditions. CT scan, MRI, PET MRI, PET CT is mainly done for the person with malignancy to find out the severity, spread, compressive symptoms, whether it is invasive, non-invasive variety, etc. But the type of malignancy is diagnosed mainly by FNAC or open biopsy. Perchlorate discharge test is only done in one condition where you are suspecting a Pendred syndrome, or very rarely in amiodarone induced thyrotoxicosis. Rare, not common, but most commonly done to rule out Pendred syndrome, which is a congenital disorder where you have got a disorder of enzyme defects and there is a leakage of hormones. And after confirming the diagnosis, you go for what we call as a management, that is treatment part and monitoring part. Monitoring is a must to find out where your treatment is effective or not effective. These are all the different disorders which you can see: thyrotoxicosis, myxedema or euthyroid, which can be easily diagnosed from clinical history, physical examination and systemic examination. Etiology can be also suspected by taking a good history, whether it is congenital, acquired or iatrogenic. This N should be out, sorry, it should be IATRO, iatrogenic. Depending upon the nodules and clinical suspicion of thyrotoxicosis, single nodule we call as a goiters, multinodular we call as a plumber disease, and smooth goiter, which is a toxic goiter, diffuse toxic goiter, we call as a Graves' disease or Basedow disease. So by a good clinical examination of thyroid gland and clinical history, you can confirm these conditions clinically. Also in examination you can find out thyroglossal cyst, pyramidal lobe enlargement, lingual thyroid, ectopic thyroid you can clinically suspect. Also you can examine a goiter whether it is a smooth, multinodular or solitary nodule, or there is no goiter. Goiter is benign, malignant, or there is a thyroiditis, tender, non-tender, etc. You can examine by doing a good examination of thyroid gland. So this becomes the most important part before you go for laboratory investigations. Thyroiditis can be acute, subacute, chronic. It can be autoimmune, Hashimoto's riddles or postpartum thyroiditis. All these are also suspected by a good clinical examination and a good history. Short history, acute, tender gland, you will have a fluctuation, warm, all the signs of acute inflammation, all those 4 signs of inflammation. In a subacute variety, usually it is a little slow onset, and classical example is Dequarian variety. In a chronic, usually there is a long-standing history, and in a case of a riddles, it is a hard nodule which is freely mobile, moves with deglutition. Hashimoto's is very common disorders. Riddle's is not a very common, and this will be in a postpartum period. That is, we call postpartum thyroiditis. So, by a good history and physical examination, etc., and examination of thyroid gland, good number of conditions you can suspect on a clinical ground. A person is hypothyroid or hyperthyroid. There are a lot of symptoms and signs, but there are few which are very peculiar for hypo. That is arthritis, cold intolerance, depression, dry skin, myxedema, myxedematous changes in the skin, forgetfulness, heavy menstrual period, metromenoregia, infertility, muscle aches, weight gain, constipation, brittle nails, loss of lateral eyebrows, dry and coarse hairs, puffy face. Person may be associated with goiter enlargement. By and large, it is a smooth goiter and bradycardia. These are all the symptom signs in case of a hypothyroidism. While in a hypothyroidism, insomnia, heat intolerance, infertility, irritability, muscle weakness, nervousness, amenorrhea, hair loss, exophthalmos, excessive sweating, thyroid goiter, tachycardia, weight loss, diarrhea, warm moist skin, tremors, you get acropathy, onychoplasia, changes in the nails, etc. And if you have got an exophthalmos, it is more in favor of Graves' disease. And in case of a plumber disease, you will have more of cardiovascular signs like tachycardia, congestive heart failure, atrial flutter fibrillation. So cardiovascular symptom signs are more common in those groups. So clinically, this will be in a manifest groups, or we call clinical variety, or we call overt variety. But in a some clinical variety, some of this symptom may be present, but person usually remains asymptomatic. But once the person, even with a subclinical hypothyroid reports or subclinical hyperthyroid reports, and if they present with any one of these symptoms in hypo or in hyper, the person needs treatment. So this is a difference between hyper and hypo. We have already shown you in this slide. So go through that. You can go in detail again in this particular. All those difference whatever are mentioned before, they are discussed, and there is a comparison between hyper and hypo. You can have a look at that at a leisure time. This is between primary and secondary hypo. We have already told you that TSH will be high in case of a primary, while in secondary usually TSH is low in case of hypothyroidism, because secondary is very frequently because of pituitary induced, where TSH will be low, T3 and T4 will be also low, while in a primary T3 and T4 is low and TSH is high. This is one of the main important difference between primary and secondary. Second important thing is in secondary cortisol level will be affected, while in primary usually other hormones secreted by a anterior pituitary from beta cell will not be effective. And once in a while, what we call as an antibody will be absent in case of secondary, while it is very frequently because one of the common cause of primary is we call Hashimoto's, in which you will have a thyroid antibody positive. And in primary, very frequently you will have a goiter, quite frequently goiter is present, and you will have a myxedematous changes in the skin. While in case of secondary, usually goiter is absent and myxedematous changes are also nearly absent. While you want to differentiate between primary and secondary thyrotoxicosis, primary is because of the basic thyroid gland disorder, while secondary is because of what we call as either because of pituitary or because of drug induced or external secretion of TSH hormones. And it is very easy to differentiate. Cardiovascular signs will be more common in secondary, and exophthalmos will be more common in case of primary, or we call as a Graves' disease. It is very, very common. So do look for that particular very important things to differentiate the two. In case of hypo, these are some of the things which we have already mentioned: depression, hair loss, weight gain, tiredness, dry skin, bradycardia, mixed edematous changes in the skin, menstrual irregularity, particularly metromenoregia, infertility, depression, etc. These are typical mixed edematous change. This is a typical infantile hypothyroidism we call as neonatal hypothyroidism or cretinism. You will have a goiter, you will have a macroglossia, typical mixed edematous face. Hypothyroidism may be also associated with very frequently some of the comorbid conditions like obesity, endothelial dysfunctions, blood pressure, hyperlipidemia, and person can have accelerated atherosclerosis. Can be also associated with type 1 and type 2 diabetes, infertility, hyperlipidemia, ischemic heart disease, cerebrovascular strokes, and depression. These are some of the things may be associated along with hypothyroidism. In a person with hypothyroidism, diarrhea, weight loss, tremors, warm moist hands, tachycardia, atrial flutter fibrillation, dryness, sore throat, excessive sweating, insomnia, quite common symptoms. And some of the common exophthalmos signs like Stilwell signs, von Graffi's sign, you can have a Joffre's sign, Mobius signs, etc. All those signs can be present. So you will have a symptoms of exophthalmos like proptosis, corneal damage, periorbital edema, chemosis, conjunctival injection means reddish conjunctiva, extraocular muscle can be involved, we call ophthalmoplegia, and optic nerve can be compressed producing optic neuropathy. And goiter can be smooth goiter, non-nodular. You can palpate, thrill, auscultation of bruit can be possible. It will be moving with deglutition, non-tender, and usually there is no adenopathy. And diffuse enlargement of the thyroid gland. Lidleck sign will be positive. All those signs what we have mentioned, von Graffi's sign, Stilwell sign, Mobius signs, as well as we call Joffre's sign, all those signs will be positive. As well as along with goiter, person will have hyperthyroidism by laboratory parameter. You will have exophthalmos, localized mixed edema, acropathy, and in a person with a Graves' disease, you will have a stimulating antibody will be strongly positive. All these are very commonly seen in a Graves' disease. This is typical acropathy, means nail change or a finger changes, clubbing of the finger, painless. There will be periosteal proliferation, soft tissue swelling, etc. And you can even have a clubbing. While as far as the nail changes is concerned, you can have a brittle nail, the horizontal scarring will be there. You can have this brittle nail, etc. will be there, and those are also called as plumber nails. The separation of a nail from the nail bed you call as a plumber nail, and these nail changes are called onycholysis, and finger changes are called acropathy. There is another group we call as a critically ill patient, where person is sick because of other disorders like severe acute sepsis, liver disease, malignancy, traumatic injury, post-surgical major surgery, CKD, congestive heart failure, etc. In this particular group, you will have a normal T4 or high T4, low T3, and because that T3 is converted into reverse T3, you will have a high level of RT3 or we call reverse T3, and TSH will invariably remain normal. In a very severe variety, you can have a TSH level low also. And once the person recovers from these conditions, all parameters that is T3, T4 and TSH will be normal. So do recognize, and this particular person do not require any particular treatment. They require control of these disorders. And T3, T4, TSH will become normal. So in a person who has got an abnormal low level of T3, normal or little high level of T4 and normal TSH, do suspect critically ill thyroid illness in critically ill patient. Also, there is one more condition we call as a sick euthyroid syndrome also. For confirming the diagnosis, you will do TSH, free T4, free T3, T34, we call total T34. You can do TPO antibody, TSH receptor antibody, which can be stimulating antibody or inhibitory antibody, or it is also called as a thyroid receptor antibody. Thyroglobulin antibody you can do. You can go for a TSH stimulation test to differentiate pituitary induced disorders, and TRH stimulation test for TRH, what we call as a hypothalamic induced disorders, or very occasionally inhibition tests are being done. We already mentioned before that ultrasound radioactive iodine uptake, we call thyroid scan by technetium, CT, MRI, FNAC, PET CT, PET MRI, are all these are being done mainly for goiter to differentiate malignant, non-malignant, hot nodule, cold nodules, high uptake, low uptake, normal uptake, type of goiter, multinodular, solitary nodule, smooth goiter, etc. can be easily identified by doing all these tests. So these are the tests usually done for a person with goiter, enlargement of a thyroid gland. And very rare test, perchlorate discharge test is very rarely done to rule out Pendred syndrome, or we call as a amiodarone induced thyrotoxicosis. Indication for doing a thyroid function test, any person clinically suspicion of hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism, strong family history of hypo or hyper, patient with type 1, even in type 2 diabetes mellitus, celiac disease, other autoimmune disorders, person having ischemic heart disease, hyperlipidemia, person with congestive heart failure, pericardial effusions, atrial flutter fibrillations. So dyslipidemia, atrial flutter fibrillation, pericardial effusion, hypertension, pregnancy, postpartum thyroiditis, goiter person, any person with a goiter, drug induced like amiodarone, lithium, interferon, you should go for T34 TSH. In a female with sterility, amenorrhea, metromenoregia, or age more than 35, past history of neck surgery, irradiation, or old age, common for male as well as female. In a male, infertility, galactorrhea, also you can go for a thyroid studies. We divide the thyroid study into two big groups, non-goiter and goiter. In a non-goiter, history, physical examination, thyroid and examination is very important. BMR test, deep tendon reflex relaxation time examination can be easily done. You can examine cardiovascular system, do echo and ECG to rule out other cardiovascular disorders and effect of thyroid hormones disorders on cardiovascular system. Laboratory parameters, antibody studies, lipid profile, GTT, CBC, CPK, LDH and AST. These are some of the tests very commonly being done in a person with hypo or hyperthyroid without goiter. But if a person has got a goiter or a nodule, physical examination like all this has to be done in that group also. Plus ultrasound, CT scan, MRI, PET scan, radioactive iodine uptake, technetium, thyroid scan, FNAC, biopsy, etc. In some person you are suspecting, we call as a carcinoma, you can go for CEA, we call carcino embryogenic antigen, and you can go for a TRH stimulation test or a TSH stimulation test or perchlorate discharge test, particularly in a person with Pendred syndrome or with amiodarone induced thyrotoxicosis, and TRH and TSH to rule out secondary groups of disorders. Particularly TSH is for pituitary and TRH is for hypothalamic induced disorders. This is one simple, we call 9 quadrant. So if TSH is low and free T4 is high, primary hyper. If T4 is low and TSH is also low, secondary hypo. If free T4 is high and TSH is also high, secondary hyper. If T4 is low and TSH is high, primary hypo. So these are the four main quadrants. We always try to rule out primary, secondary, hyper and primary, secondary, hypo. And where TSH is normal or T4 is normal, mainly it is euthyroid. And sometimes you come across in a thyroid, person may be euthyroid, but person can have a thyroid goiter, particularly puberty goiter or mild iodine deficiency goiter, good number of times. But if T4 is high and TSH is normal, suspect non-thyroid illness, we call acute thyroid illness or sick euthyroid syndrome. Similar thing you can get if T4 is low, or we call basically, ideally we call T3 is low and TSH is normal, you go for what we call as a non-thyroid illness. So try to look for that particular. And if T3, T4 is normal, but TSH is high, then we call that as a hypothyroid, subclinical hypo. And if TSH is low, subclinical hyper. So depending upon this, you will go for. This is same thing, little bit given in detail. At your leisure time, you can go. There are more additional conditions which we have mentioned here, with a high TSH, with a low TSH, and with a T4 level combinations. We have given here very few conditions selectively what you come across in your everyday practice. This is almost all conditions are being included. So at your leisure time, you can go through those particular conditions. Euthyroid, thyroid in transition, then euthyroid sickness. You can. Those are usually in those quadrants. Sick euthyroid syndrome will have a total T3 reduced, free T3 reduced, total T4 is also reduced, free T4 is normal and TSH is normal. When you get such combination, usually we say that T3 is reduced, T4 is very close to normal and TSH is also normal. Clinically person is euthyroid and person has got acute illness. You can call that as a sick euthyroid syndrome or you can call thyroid, non-thyroid illness. So in that particular, this is mild, moderate and severe. You can see in a severe variety, T3 is also low, T4 is also low and TSH is also low. But when a person recovers, TSH becomes normal, reverse T3 becomes normal. Still initially you can have a T3 being little low, but when the person fully recovers, T3, T4 will be normal and TSH will be also normal, reverse T3 will be also normal. In a mild variety, T3 is low, T4 is normal, TSH is normal. In a moderate, now T4 will start falling, T3 will be markedly low and TSH will also start falling. In a severe variety, TSH will be also low. So do keep it in mind, you can get sometimes such abnormality which will reverse back as soon as you control acute illness. This is algorithm for hypo which we have already discussed. You can go through your leisure time. This is that particular chart, very, very important chart in a case of a hyperthyroidism. If free T4 is high and TSH is low with eye signs, suspect Graves. No eye signs, do a radioactive iodine uptake study. If it is high and it is a smooth goiter, then suspect Graves disease, or also it will be high in case of a choriocarcinoma, that is human choriogonadotropic hormone is elevated, or if it is low uptake, then you can suspect subacute thyroiditis, silent thyroiditis, or early stage of Graves disease, or person on a levothyroxine externally, or very rarely we call as a ovarian teratomas where there is an TSH production being high. Very rarely you can have a T3, T4 production also from struma overi, which can produce such conditions. If T34 is normal, TSH is high, suspect pituitary tumors or TSH secreting tumors, which can be pituitary tumors or can be paraneoplastic like bronchogenic carcinoma, or can be ovarian teratoma, or can be testicular teratomas. So do investigate from that point of view. If there is no eye signs and it is a single nodule, and if T4 is high and TSH is low, suspect multinodular toxic goiter or solitary nodule. Usually in this, you don't have a exophthalmos signs. Exophthalmos is a peculiar in case of a Graves' disease. If T4 is normal and TSH is low, then do T3 simultaneously. And with combination of T3, if T3 is high, early stage of Graves' disease. If T3 is low, euthyroid 6 syndrome. And if T3 is normal, subclinical hypothyroidism. Do keep it in mind, these conditions. This is same we have already mentioned regarding antibody in Graves' disease. Stimulating antibodies will be strongly positive. TPO will be positive in 70 to 80% of the patient, and thyroglobulin will be present in 50%. Same thing will be also seen in Hashimoto's and postpartum thyroiditis. But in these two groups, TPO antibody will be strongly positive, but blocking antibody may be detected only in 10 to 20% of the groups. So keep this thing. So you can easily differentiate postpartum thyroiditis and Hashimoto's from Graves' disease very easily. And in all the three, you will have a goiter. This is during early pregnancy. T3T4 level and TSH level is important. So if you diagnose an overt thyroiditis, overt thyrotoxicosis, or we call it a Graves' disease in an early stage, you will have a TPO antibody and stimulating antibody will be strongly positive. In a subclinical variety, you will have a TSH level low and T3T4 level may be normal. TPO antibody is usually negative in this particular group of people in a subclinical thyroiditis, or maybe gestational transient thyrotoxicosis. While in a case of a hypothyroidism, very frequently TPO antibody will be positive in a subclinical hypo, and in this particular group, you will need a levothyroxine treatment will be required. A person with a T4 level normal and TSH level is slightly elevated and TPO antibody is negative, you may not require levothyroxine, but if there is an first trimester and if TSH level is slightly elevated, then also you will have to start with levothyroxine. Usually TSH level are at a particular level during first trimester, we call less than 2.5, in second trimester less than 3, and third trimester it is more than 3. So if any person who has got a disorder, whether hyper or hypo, and he is on a treatment, you should maintain this close to, in a first trimester, close to 2.5, in second and third trimester between 2.5 to 3, not over 3. So keep close to that level. So any person with T3, T4, TSH normal, usually we call as a normal or euthyroid. If T3, T4 is normal and TSH is also normal, then also it is euthyroid. Free T3, T4 is elevated and TSH is low, it will go in favor of primary hyperthyroidism. If TSH is high and free T3, T4 is low, primary hypo. T3, T4 is high and TSH is also high, secondary hypo. T3, T4 low and TSH is also low, secondary hypo. T3, T4 normal and TSH is high, we'll call that as subclinical hypo. T3 T4 normal and TSH low, subclinical hyper. If T3 T4, T3 and T4 is little elevated or low and TSH is normal, non-thyroid illness, or even in case of aldosterone, sorry, not aldosterone, amiodarone induced thyrotoxicosis or acute thyroid illness also, it can be abnormal. T3 is low, T4 is normal and TSH is also normal. Sick euthyroid, or we call euthyroid sick syndrome. T3 elevated, T4 normal and TSH is low, T3 thyrotoxicosis. Almost, if you keep this thing in mind, you will be able to pick up and differentiate the different condition by doing free T3 T4 and TSH level, very common. Clinical presentation wise, it can be goiter, which can be smooth, multinodular, solitary nodule, single, maybe nodule or maybe a single adenoma. Clinical symptom signs wise, euthyroid, hyperthyroid or hypothyroid. And when you examine the goiter, you should look at the site, size, shape, surface, consistency, tenderness, pressure effects, movements with deglutition, fixed to the deeper structures or not, etc. And try to differentiate Hashimoto's, benign thyroid nodules or goiter, hypo or hyper by clinical examination, smooth, soft, mobile, warm or not, multinodular, solitary nodule, cystic, etc. And this can be further identified by doing ultrasound, radioactive iodine uptake studies, CT, MRI, etc. You can suspect malignancy if goiter is more than 3 centimeter in size, rapid growth of the tumor, firm, irregular surface, fixed to the deeper structure or adjacent structure. There is associated with cervical lymphadenopathy, and on radioactive uptake studies, cold nodule and solid nodule or complex cyst or hypoechoic on ultrasound. While if the age is less than 20 or more than 70, less chance of malignancy, male, less chance, history of childhood having a head and neck surgery, this is in all these conditions, you can suspect malignancy. Less than 20-year or more than 70-year male are more prone for malignancy. Neck irradiation, more chances of malignancy. Family history of we call as a malignancy, or person in a family is having multiple endocrine adenomatosis. So in those particular conditions, you can have a very high chance of malignancy. These are all the different groups where the chance of malignancy will increase. WHO grading wise, usually now it is divided into 3 common groups. Grade 0, we call as a non-visible, non-palpable. Grade 1, palpable but not visible. And when it is visible and easily palpable, clearly visible, we call grade 2. Now further, you can say that if it is a very large goiter, then it is called as a grade 4, grade 3 and grade 4. So that usually is not utilized. Non-visible, non-palpable, grade 0. Palpable but not clearly visible, grade 1. Clearly visible and easily palpable, grade 2. And very much enlarged, grade 4. Because of enlargement, it can produce a pressure symptoms like coughing, hoarseness, because of compression of recurrent laryngeal nerve, difficulty in swallowing, difficulty in breathing, and tightness in a throat region, etc. So this can be the symptom signs. And when you examine a patient, always let the patient sit on a stool or a chair. Inspect from the front as well as from the side. Look at the thyroid gland when he's swallowing sputum or swallowing saliva, or give him a water. Examine the neck in a relaxed position. Palpate from behind. Remember that fingertips is the best way to find out a thyroid gland enlargement and the type of a thyroid gland: solid, soft, hard, tender, non-tender, etc. Use the tip of the finger for palpation. Palpate firmly down from cricoid to completely down to the suprasternal notch. Perform the Pemberton signs to rule out retrosternal goiter. By elevating the arms close to the head, you will get congestion of the face, that is Pemberton signs. It will be extremely difficult in this particular lady to examine, inspection, palpation, percussion and auscultation will be difficult. So for inspection, all the clothes from the neck should be removed, and then you do inspection, palpation, percussion and auscultation. These are some of the big goiters. This is multinodular, this is smooth goiter, this is also multinodular. You can see the compression symptoms, you can see the dilated veins. So there is some portion which is retrosternal also. So this is a typical inspection sign showing you the compression part of it. This is typical lingual thyroid. Lingual thyroid. You can see this is a lingual thyroid. This is a lingual thyroid. Lingual thyroid. You can see this is a lingual thyroid. It can be inside the tongue itself. We call as intralingular. This is typical one of the variety of ectopic thyroid gland. This is a toxic multinodular. This is a diffuse goiter. This is a small cyst. This is on the side, so this is less likely to be thyroid. This is a goiter. This is an infected cyst. This is a cervical abscess, big cervical abscess. These are lymph nodes, and if these lymph nodes are present with a little enlargement of the thyroid gland, this can be secondary metastasis. This is a submandibular abscess. So all swelling in the neck cannot be thyroid, but always rule out thyroid gland. This is classical Pemberton signs. You can see on elevating the arms, there is a marked congestion because of the compression in a retrosternal goiter. While palpating, look at the volume, consistency, mobility, surface, temperature, parameters. We call palpable bruit, or we call palpable thrill, then tender, non-tender, etc. And this is the best way of palpation. The fingertips should be utilized, and always palpate by standing on the back. Also auscultate for a bruit. Whenever you are suspecting a retrosternal goiter, percuss on the sternum, manubrium sterni. And in some cases, particularly when you suspect a cyst, do a trans illumination test by using a torch. This is a trans illumination test using a torch. These are the things when a person comes to you with a nodule. History and physical examination we have already discussed. Do a TSH test. If it is very low, it is chances of thyrotoxicosis. Do a radioisotope scan. If there is decreased uptake, we call it a cold nodule. This is a cold nodule. Go for FNAC directly, or you can do an ultrasound and go for FNAC biopsy. If it is a hot nodule, it is by and large less likely to be malignant, but still try to rule out malignancy. In this, you can go for a, because this is a thyrotoxicosis, you can go for what we call as a thyroid drugs which suppresses the thyroid secretions, or you can go for a radioactive iodine or surgery. So it is called drug, radioactive iodine or surgery treatment. And if you use an ultrasound, if it is less than 1 centimeter, by and large it is less likely to be malignant, but more than 1 centimeter there is a suspicion. On a ultrasound, if it is a solid tumor, go for FNAC biopsy. If it is a cystic tumor, you can rule out by doing an aspiration and look for the malignant cells. And if there are malignant cells, you can go for a surgery. Surgery is a must in the cystic tumors. While FNAC, if it is non-diagnostic, you can repeat the test again in a clinical suspicion. If it is malignant, you can go for surgery or radioactive iodine treatment, radioisotope treatment, I-131 treatment. In a suspected malignancy also, surgery or radiotherapy. In indeterminate Hertel's malignancy or follicular carcinoma, also you can go for radioactive iodine scan if it is cold nodule surgery. And if on FNAC biopsy in a solid tumor it is benign, you can wait and observe, have a regular follow-up. So in step 3, management of hypothyroidism in a subclinical overt or hepatic coma, or sorry, not hepatic coma, we call as a mixed edema coma, and in a hypothyroidism subclinical variety, overt variety, and thyrotoxic storm, the treatment will be little different. And in a step 4, you monitor the person and have a regular follow-up. Monitoring is absolutely necessary. And monitoring is for effect and side effects. And you should also monitor for diabetes, abnormal lipids, look for bones for osteoporosis, etc. Look for cardiovascular and look for the eye signs. And monitoring for TSH during pre-conception, during pregnancy and postnatal period is absolutely necessary. In a subclinical hypothyroidism, there are few conditions. Subclinical means TSH is abnormal, T3T4 is normal. If TSH is less than 10, look for TPO antibody. If TPO antibody is positive, start straightforward with hormone replacement therapy. If TPO antibody is negative and TSH is less than 10, but person is symptomatic, or person is having a goiter, or there is a dyslipidemia, or person is very young, middle-aged groups, or preconception period, or during pregnancy, or there is amenorrhea, should be treated. Should be treated. And if TSH is more than 10, straightforward start with hormone replacement therapy. In elderly person, no symptoms, no goiter, no dyslipidemia, anovulatory, have a close follow-up and then decide regarding a treatment part. So close follow-up with a hormone replacement may be necessary in some of these conditions also in an elderly person. So do look at all these conditions. And whenever you do a hormone replacement therapy, mainly we give levothyroxine in asymptomatic with TSH more than 10, asymptomatic with TPO antibody positive even if TSH is more than 5, symptomatic group with TSH more than 5, we don't require TPO antibody to be positive. In pregnant female with TSH more than 5 should be treated. Any person with goiter and TSH more than 5 should be treated. And in all hypothyroid, pituitary induced should be treated. And euthyroid goiter with thyroid nodule, subacute thyroiditis, particularly Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and any person who has undergone surgery and radioactive iodine therapy for thyroid malignancy also requires hormone replacement therapy. You should have annual monitoring in a person. Initially 6 to 8 weeks unless the TSH level reaches normal, and once it reaches normal, regular follow-up is a must. So regular follow-up and maintain TSH between 5 to 2, that is the best, and person should become relatively asymptomatic. And these are all the doses which are being prescribed. By and large, it is 1.6 to 1.8 milligram per kilogram body weight, microgram per kilogram body weight. In elderly, the dose is usually starting with 25 to 50 microgram and then gradually increase. In a person with coronary artery disease also, the dose elderly person, very elderly, coronary artery disease, the dose should be started very low. In pregnancy, usually you have to increase the dose 25 to 50% of the time. You will have to increase the dose up to 50% of the original dose, and you can go up to 2 to 2.4 microgram per kilogram per day. In a congenital also, your dose requirement may be very high, 10 to 15 microgram per kilogram per day, and not more than 50 microgram per day in a congenital hypothyroidism. Initially, during first 6 months of the age, you can go up to 25 to 37.5, and then as the child grow up, you can increase up to 10 to 15 microgram per kilogram body weight. So these are all the different figures which are being there for a children groups. Congenital hypothyroidism in an early age, as the age advances, see the doses. After 12 years, it comes almost close to what we call as an adult. So do keep it in mind. Always start slow, go slow, and during that particular period, look for a person is responding or not responding, and then gradually increase the dose. It is always we call step up therapy is better than step down therapy. Always it is better. So go through this particular slide. As far as the person in whom you are giving, sorry, I'll talk little bit here also. Any person in whom you don't get a response, either it is under therapy, or person is not taking a medications properly, or person is not observing how to take a medications, because good number of time it is taken with a meal, or it is taken with the drugs which decreases the absorption of T34, we call levothyroxine. So see that the person takes properly a full dose and takes regularly. So rule out those conditions. Good number of time the person may be taking proton pump inhibitors, antacids, iron tablets, B complex, etc. And also good number of time it is taken with meal, and person may be irregular in taking doses, maybe taking alternate day or maybe taking occasionally. Rule out all those conditions and then only step up the dose. This should be ruled out first. Occasionally, it can be because of malabsorption syndrome also. That condition, GI tract disorders like achlorhydria, partial gastrectomy, Crohn's disease, other malabsorption syndromes like pancreatitis should be ruled out. In case of thyrotoxicosis, symptomatic relief, antithyroid drugs we call as a methimazole, carbimazole or PTU is a mainstay. Person can be subjected to radioactive iodine treatment or thyroidectomy, which can be subtotal, total or partial. Supportive line of treatment, NSAID and corticosteroid, mainly in a case of what we call as solitary nodule. And very frequently this is being given in a thyroiditis. But it should be used with caution. Always look for intake of iodine, lithium, perchlorate, cholestyramine, etc. These are some of the things which can alter your what we call as a thyroid function. If a person who has got a smooth goiter and is taking a large dose of iodine orally will develop thyrotoxicosis. Lithium will decrease the output of T34. So do keep it in mind all these conditions which can interfere with your absorption and also can interfere with your thyroid functions. PTU dose is 5 to 10 milligram per kilogram. Methimazole dose is 0.5 to 1 milligram. This is indirectly, if you look at this, this is 10 times dose. Clear? While carbimazole is double the dose of methimazole. So if you take carbimazole 1 milligram to 2 milligram per kilogram, so if a person is weighing say 60, you are giving 60 milligram. So this you will give 30, and this you will give multiple of 10. So 300 milligram of propylthiouracil you will require. So that will be the way you will have to think of. In a person with a hypersympathetic symptoms because of hyperstimulation like tremors, tachycardia, profuse perspiration, you can use beta blocker, particularly propranolol. Don't go for a very high dose. Usually 40 milligram in a sustained release preparation is adequate enough. You can sometime in some cases, particularly pre-operative preparations, a person undergoing a surgery, you can use Lugol's iodine to block the release of T3T4 to prevent thyrotoxic storm during surgery. So pre-operatively it is given, and look at the complications which are there because of a goiter or because of thyrotoxicosis and treat those particular complications. In a subclinical hyperthyroid, any person with an age more than 65, if he is less than 65 but he is having a coronary artery disease, osteoporosis, postmenopausal in female, and having some symptoms of hyperthyroidism, he should be treated. He should be treated. And if TSH is less than 0.1, then also treatment should be started. And if a person with age less than 65 and asymptomatic, you should consider treatment if he is having low cholesterol level or he is having osteoporosis, etc. You should start treatment. These are some of the conditions where T3T4 is normal, only TSH is low. And if TSH is low, between 0.1 to 0.5, then you can think it over in a person with 65 years of age. And if a person with even this report and has got heart disease, osteoporosis, postmenopausal, hyperthyroid symptoms, you have to start treatment. You have to start treatment. Consider treating. In all these conditions, you will have to treat. This already we have shown these slides in a hyperthyroidism. You can go through that. If a person has got a small goiter, usually antithyroid drugs are adequate enough. You don't require surgery, and that should be given for minimum 1.5 years till it is absolutely strictly rigidly controlled, and then later on you can taper off the dose. In a large goiter and age more than 45 or less than 45, sorry, less than 45, then you can go for surgery or radioiodine therapy. In a toxic nodular goiter, surgery is first indication, subtotal thyroidectomy, and person if does not recover, then you can go for antithyroid drugs. Or you start with antithyroid drugs, does not respond, you go for surgery. Solitary nodule over 25 years, radioactive iodine. Under 45 years, surgery. Recurrent thyrotoxicosis after surgery, antithyroid drug is a must. And if age is more than 45, radioactive iodine. If there is a failure of antithyroid drugs or radiotherapy, surgery is a must. So these are some of the way you decide whether you give antithyroid drugs or you subject them to surgery or subject them to radioactive iodine. This is that particular, whatever we have discussed at present is mentioned here. How you approach to the person with a thyroid nodule, how you investigate and what you decide, whether you decide for surgery or you decide for radioactive iodine or antithyroid drugs. This is in a person with malignancy. Surgery is a must, whether partial or complete, may be associated with radioactive iodine, and then chemotherapy. Benign nodule, levothyroxine suppressive therapy is one of the therapy can be utilized, or you can inject percutaneous ethanol into that benign nodule. You can subject them to surgery. You can use radioactive iodine to destroy that particular nodule. Not commonly utilized. You can use a laser therapy. The most common utilization is suppressive therapy and ethanol injections, and then can be followed by surgery. Or nowadays they are also using radiofrequency ablation therapy for benign nodule. So I end my lectures here. I hope this will be all helpful to you, and in a subsequent lecture we'll be dealing with interesting cases and how you approach to those cases by looking clinically, and then what investigation you will ask for, we'll be discussing in those cases. So I end my lecture here.